All right. Well, welcome to our Summit Community Forum, all about spa education and planning and implementation. I know that for a lot of us, we hold value on what education as a benefit of working for our companies. So I'm super excited to be able to work with you all today in discussing my best practices of spa education. So we want to give a shout out to our friends at L'Oreal Professional Product Division for their support in growing our salon and spa professionals. And for those who have not met me, obviously familiar faces on this Zoom, but my name is Victoria Perry. I'm a licensed esthetician as well as a salon and spa owner in Ohio. I've been working for Summit over 6 years as a spa specialty team leader and consultant. So, a lot of my work now is being full time as a consultant, working out in the field. Though I am in the treatment room a few days a week, it's important for me to be able to still touch base on new services, guest care, and be able to really just continue to give those service standards expectations to my team. So when we think about spa education, planning and implementation really is about how to grow best practices to be able to just build really strong level ones and continue to build brand consistency within our departments. So if you're working in a spa where there's one or five spa therapists, we really need to start thinking about what is the expectation of the brand? What is the expectation of our consumer? And so education, in my belief, really helps set the foundation of this. So it's really about planning to be more consistent with our education and making sure our education is being provided in either like a monthly, quarterly basis. And then making sure that we're focusing in on areas of support that are really needed for our team. I always like to think back to, my own company when we were working with our spa department and our massage therapist specifically. I myself had someone else handle the education component of that, and a lot of it was built on just meeting together and having these discussions on what would the service look like or how should we be doing this, and it just kept on having multiple meetings and like no execution was happening until I finally like stepped in and I was like, okay, guys, like we need to focus on like what's the purpose of transitioning this service or what are we seeing that needs to change for this. So when we talk about planning and implementation for education, I just really want us to think about these three factors. As one, education should always be about how to uphold service standards. Um, Upholding service standards is also two. For us, it's going to be about how do we continue to build excellence within our company, but as we built repeat business, making sure our service standards are consistent for every single visit. So I like to think about this as in like if you're going to a restaurant that you frequent, is that customer service care consistent? Is the type of food that you're ordering consistent? And so when people are visiting our companies, I think it's important to also note that, that is something that they've come to expect. They come to expect a certain level of care, whether it's for their hair service, whether it's for their skin service, massage service. So, uphold service standards is not only the technical component of what we're doing in the protocol, but I also believe that it's, really goes back to just those special enhancements that happen, whether it's they change into a wrap and robe, the room is dimly lit, or we have certain candles lit. Those sensory experiences I think are really important to make sure that we're tying into this service standard. The second piece to education is really to make it comprehensive, meaning, we have to be more organized with how we are presenting an education class or facilitating. And I think it goes back to understanding the time, understanding the concept that we're trying to focus on. And I think when we tend to have these, traditional, we're going to have some education come in, and we're hosting it internally within our own department. I think that's where sometimes the conversation gets a little lax, and so many people want to have their input on how they believe that that training should be, and then it kind of goes off cycle and there's no really like true training that's happening. And then the third piece to this in my recommendation is when we're talking about spa education is to really see it as an employee benefit. And we'll talk about ways to making sure that when we're setting up our career path and we're interviewing new hires, I'm talking about the importance of, when working for our company, these are the benefits that we have internal for them to better themselves and better their craft. So, when we think about spa education, I think it's important to identify what are our service standards. And so, this is something in my own company. We've been in business for over 20 years. We have 8 treatment rooms, and we have at this time currently we have 14 estheticians. Now, not all of my estheticians are full time, right? A majority of them work 3 to 4 days a week. So it's important for us to making sure that we're being very consistent on protocols. I just had this conversation with our education director yesterday, is that as we've been bringing on new education leads to help facilitate these trainings, what we've come to notice is that people kind of put their own spin on certain types of services. So, maybe, for example, in my company, for our signature facial, it includes a hand and foot massage that also incorporates the warm mittens. So, you're going to get the booties for the feet, and you're going to get the mittens for the hands. Now, a revelation through having a training process is that we realized one of our estheticians was never using the hand mitts because she didn't personally like how that service felt when she had it done with the hand mitts. But as you can tell, for me, looking at it from 30,000 feet of like, okay, this is an expectation of our guests. So this is a feature and a benefit of this service. The feature is that we're going to say in our menu, how we're describing it to them on our social media or on our website, is that they're going to receive warm mittens and warm booties. So if one of those features is not being facilitated, then our service standard isn't being upheld. So I think it's important to, understand that there's going to be the protocol in itself, which is going to be the steps. So think of it, we're going to cleanse, we're going to do a second cleanse, we're going to tone, we're going to exfoliate. So we have the steps of the protocol. But these service standards are really going to be those features and benefits that are going to enhance that, or what you're making your service unique within your company. So features and benefits of a facial could be, in my example, our signature facial, is that it's going to be a customized treatment. So we're going to do a consultation that's going to specifically diagnose or suggest what is it the product that we're going to use, whether it's going to be anti-aging, calming for sensitive skin, working on clearing for acne. Another feature and benefit for us is that, our massage for our face includes the face, neck, and shoulders. So if I'm only doing a facial massage and I'm not incorporating the neck and shoulders, we could see where that service standard isn't being upheld. Another feature and benefit, like I shared earlier, was, we also incorporate a hand and foot massage and treatment. So they're going to get the warm mittens and booties to help enhance that service. The next piece to this is, what are specific service features? So what did they like specifically about this? So here's another piece to this. Are our tables warmed? Do we use how many hot towels? So when we think about education, I really want us to think about really getting down to specifics of like what is always a feature or a service expectation that's always going to be upheld. And then technique. So, what is the technique that we're using? Are we using in our massage services? Are we using effleurage? Are we using tapotement? Being specific that, certain modalities have to be utilized, even for like handheld micro scrubbers. Maybe they're using high frequency. The third piece to this is, home care recommendations. So for all of our services that we're facilitating, what are going to be those recommendations? And we always want to give 3, right? They always have to come out with a cleanser or SPF or maybe an antioxidant. So this spa service training worksheet is a really great way for us to use first when we're thinking about which services do we need to focus on facilitating some training on, and getting very specific to that your team has now a deliverable that they can use to be able to making sure those service standards are upheld. So I'll make sure that everyone has a copy of this, and this will be uploaded for you in community so that way you can also see this in your own example and utilize this. Any questions when it comes to the spa service training worksheet? Yep, awesome. All right. So when we think about comprehensive phases, so we have the Spa Associate Program Workbook, which is a deliverable through our Zoom consulting or on-site consulting. But the Spa Associate Program really is a customized onboarding process when working with bringing on new hires for an educator within your spa company. So if you're wanting more information about the Spa Associate Program, we did do a recorded Zoom a few months back that you can always look at, but we also can do a virtual consultation with you to discuss how we can customize this for your specific company. But when we think about our training, I think, I'm going to go back to one of these deliverables that's in here in the Spa Associate Workbook, and it's really about our phases. And so we have 4 phases of our spa education curriculum. So one is front desk. It's important for us to them, for our providers to understand the importance of, understanding guest care from the front desk, the 4-step check-in, the 4-step checkout, buyer types. Core services would be the second. This is going to be, our traditional services. So in the example here, you're going to see maybe it's an express facial, a standard facial, maybe your lash lift and tint. Then we go into hair removal, and then we go into specialty services. So our recommendation is as we're onboarding new hires, or even doing this internally as an all team department training, focusing on the 4-step consultation would be number 1. So no matter what service it is, we need to develop our signature consultation. So what are going to be the specific questions? What are going to be the specific areas that we're going to be focusing on during our consultation? One of the things I love to do is have our team share their best practices with questions. So what are questions that they find that really help get specific to understand the guest needs and desired results? We use this a lot at Summit where we say, use our words until you find your own. And when I go back to thinking about, as an early service provider, there's so much that they need to learn when it comes to aesthetics or spa, and whether it's the protocol, now the ingredients. So for me, I go back to remembering listening to my colleague speak about vitamin C, or speak about how she was talking about the facial. So I always love to role play that with the team, or even in that sense, have your team fill out intake forms and then piece that together for them too. Third is definitely discussing the cost before commencing services. And we know this is something that we're always working on getting better at, is just making sure the guest knows and understands the cost of the investment of this service before they leave and are just realizing it at the front desk. And then with that 4-step consultation, it's also important to understand the maintenance and home care recommendations. So we want to make sure our team is really understanding how to talk about home care or product recommendations, or what the next visit is within the service. A lot of times spa therapists really don't want to necessarily make the service unrelaxing by talking about sales, right? And so they want to be cognizant of the time that the person's spending, or maybe they're not speaking. So I always like to say there's 2 touch points on when I'm always going to speak about services. One's a consultation with the mag lamp. So I always say when the mag lamp is on, that is like my cue that I'm going to speak. And then the second piece to that is at the end of a facial, when I'm removing, if it's a mask, or putting on the moisturizer. That's going to be the other touch point in which I'm going to be speaking about product recommendation or home care recommendation, or both. And then we want to get really specific about the protocols. So protocols in itself, I know that our brands, have their protocols that they utilize. So I think it's important to making sure that we're being consistent on educating on those steps. And then if you have any specific, you know, additions that you use or substitutions to that protocol, making sure that we really organize this in either a step by step. And I'll give you an example of a service template that we have for them, just so we know that everyone's doing the same thing all the time. Going back to even that front desk spa service training worksheet, that's a great example as well on how you can utilize a forum or a sheet to be focusing on those touch points as well. And then finally, with spa education, the employee benefit. It's important to recognize and highlight the benefit of working for a company that values education. The cost for outsourcing education as an independent contractor or someone that's a new therapist is, hundreds and thousands of dollars even at that point. So we want to make sure as you're onboarding through the career path and you're showing them, your commission, the education benefits, highlighting what is our in-spa education. So do we have a team that is focusing on in-spa education, whether it's, teaching them the specific service standards? What do we have as far as our brand education? So who is it in our brand that we have that can be that support? So an example for us is one of our cosmeceutical lines. Our sales representative, anytime that we have a new hire, will come in and do a product knowledge training with our team. And though it's going to be a new hire, we always open it up for all levels to be able to participate in, because they're going to learn something new or going to remember something that they forgot. And then online resources. So what is the online resources that are available to, again, educate them, help them perfect their craft? And excuse me. And typically all of these are provided as a benefit for the company. It's something that, because of our reputation or our brand networking that we have in those relationships, we're able to give this as education value. So I would say, if you are working with an internal spa education team and that person is spending one-on-one time with that provider on educating them on their service standards, really think about the time that either you're paying for that investment, excuse me, or also, what is the average rate that that person typically would make in that type of service? So we could say, Victoria, we're going to have you first learn our signature facial service or our facial service standards, and that's going to be done with Molly. That's going to be a 2-hour intensive training. And what I like with those intensives is that I like to break them down no more than 3 hours. So typically and we call them intensives, or I work with some companies that call them boot camps, but that session will be focusing on showing the service being facilitated. So we like to get a model and we like to have the educator show the protocol of that service. And then the new hire or the trainee will then facilitate that service and then make sure that they are being observed by that educator. So typically that process takes about 2 to 2.5 hours, depending upon the length of that protocol. But it's really important for us to be able to show one, the trainer setting the example of what those service standards are. The trainee then has an opportunity to ask questions, maybe get some suggestions on how they would facilitate best practices for that protocol. And then that piece of where the trainer is watching the trainee is really then for us to give some more constructive feedback and maybe giving them examples of how they could facilitate that service better, or how they're holding their brush, maybe how they're doing application, how are they handling those massage movements. So it becomes more on one working on that. We like to facilitate these boot camps or these intensives maybe every 4 to 6 weeks apart. So that way, then we're setting up the example of models and checklists for them to then handle getting checked off on that specific service. So all of those those the time, the cost of the goods of those products, really need to be put into that value of what that in-spa education team is bringing to them and training them to be able to perfect their craft. And really, what we can be able to help support here as a spa specialty trainer is focusing on developing your service standards, whether it's coaching your spa team, working with your educators. So, we have this amazing special right now where it's $250 off a 4-hour custom coaching package. So, you would purchase basically 3 hours worth of time and you're getting an hour free, is how that works. So, we can focus on sales planning. We can focus on recruitment strategies, whether it's service development or even doing one-on-one coaching with your team. The great thing about these 4 hours is it can be flexible. You can do one 4-hour meeting. You could do two 2-hour meetings, or even a 4 1-hour meetings, and making that for you. So if it's something that you'd like to take advantage of, we'd be definitely open to helping support that for you. And then everyone that attends our community forum, receives a 30-minute complimentary spa discovery call. So we can get really customized onto how to focus on building your spa education and really being more impactful with that planning process. So you can use the QR code here and scan that, and it'll give you direct access to my Calendly, which will then have all of my availability to be able to connect. So just to recap, when we're thinking about education, definitely upholding service standards. So getting really organized and planning out what those service standards look like. So that's going to be based off of protocols, but then also putting your unique, features and benefits put into that place. So if we're doing our facials, for example, what are the features and benefits to our signature facial? What are the features and benefits to our express? The second piece with spa education, it's so important to making sure our training is comprehensive in the fact that we're going over consultation. We're going over recommendation of our treatment plans and products. And then we're also going over the technical component of what we're doing. Hosting these, like I said, one every 4 to 6 weeks is always in my recommendation. I feel like enough to where we have time after that service training to then facilitate models and check ourselves off. A lot of our new hires or existing team, they get very eager to learn all the things. And so we want them to master our core services and our core most popular services first. And then we'll add on maybe doing those corrective, maybe doing those hair removal services. So a recommendation would be is to actually look at, over the past 6 months, what were the most facilitated services? And then what you can do from there is then take, to say like, okay, our top 5 services in the spa were this. Over the next 6 months, we're going to get really specific on training on those top services. And then lastly, making sure that we're focusing on the employee benefits. So it's important as we're, onboarding new hires, but also at talking to the team about working for our company, the benefit of having in-house education or brand education that can help support the facilitation of these classes. So whenever I know that I'm going to be having any new hires, I'm going to also incorporate all of my level ones to be able to come to this education forums. So if I know that I'm onboarding someone to start in June, I'm going to line up with my brand educators. When are they available to come in to do also product knowledge, or what online resources are there to help support with that? So again, education, we would love to help support that for you with our Spa Associate program, which can be customized for your company and give you more of a layout that's going to be based off of those phases of front desk, core services, hair removal, and specialty services. Show you those expectations of the protocols, as well as there's a model checkoff list. There's even some protocol building enhancements to that workbook as well too. So be happy to support all of that with one of our coaching calls for you. So as we wrap up, I just want to give an opportunity to answer any questions that you have about the information that we discussed today. And if no questions, you can definitely make sure to email me at bperry@summitsalon.com. And we will then be able to help answer those questions. But Leah, thank you so much for joining us. Be hoping to help soon. But again, these are the best practices for being able to really help build up an education forum. So Nicole, welcome back. I see that you just jumped back on.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. So it's just wrapping up with those, but we can definitely review that here after I end recording with you. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Awesome. Well, everyone have a great day and then just pause while I just stop recording.